want to welcome everybody. I'm Matt Garcia. I'm professor of History and Transborder Studies at Arizona State University. And it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you here today. This is a very special occasion for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, we're commemorating the fast of Cesar Chavez in 1972, who fasted as you walked in just on the left-hand side. If you're looking back on the right-hand side, that is where Cesar fasted from May 11th, 1972 to June 4th, 1972. It was known as the Fast of Love, and one of our guests and author, Miriam Powell, will say something about that fast and the history of it in a moment. But the other reason why we're here today is to honor the many, many people who contributed to the movement, both here and far. So we brought some of our faraway friends in, and we want to invite them to be here and participate in this honoring. But the other part of it, and Miriam will say this as well, is that Arizona was a major part of the movement, and yet in the history of the movement, it remains kind of supplemental, kind of it's not fully integrated. And so that history is still evolving. And it's my hope as a historian, trying to inspire and train next generation of historians to pick up that mantle and tell the history of the farm workers movement in Arizona. So as a very small gesture of our respect and our appreciation for what happened here, we are honoring some of the local heroes of the farm workers movement. So before we get too far, though, into the program, I want to invite Miriam up and just make a couple statements about what happened here in 1972. Miriam is the author of two very important books, A Union of Their Dreams, and then more recently, The Crusades of Cesar Chavez, in which she documents what happened in this building. So Miriam?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. It's really an honor for me to be inside this building. I had seen it from the outside in my travels and my reporting, and talked to some of the veterans like Gustavo Gutierrez, who was such an important part of the Arizona farm worker movement. As Matt said, the fast took place here. It was the second of Cesar Chavez's three very long public fasts, and I think that when we think about his legacy, the tradition of fasting and of public, the degree of sacrifice that entailed is sort of a big piece of what he taught people and the way that he inspired people. So this fast began in response to the passage of the law in Arizona that would effectively would have did ban farm worker organizing. The law was pushed through very quickly, and then Governor Jack Williams signed it within an hour of it being delivered on his desk. And Chavez drove from the union headquarters in California to the home of Gustavo Gutierrez, who many people probably knew, to begin the campaign against against the law. And to begin his public fast, which he announced on the lawn of the state capitol later that afternoon. There's a tape recording of that event, and one of the things that's interesting when you read the coverage of his speech announcing the fast is that the reporters noted that he was very low-key, and that was very typical of his style. So there were all sorts of fiery speeches that preceded him, and then he got up and sort of very quietly announced that he was going to undertake this fast, and it was a fast for love. And he always distinguished between hunger strikes and fasts, and hunger strikes had some specific goal, and fasts were more of a spiritual thing that were not to achieve a specific goal, but because he wanted to demonstrate through his own suffering the importance of the cause, and he believed that degree of sacrifice attracted others. The fast for love, like the first fast, which was the fast for nonviolence, became this tremendous organizing tool. And I know that we have at least one person here who's going to speak to you as well about his own experience. And I write in the book about how Scott Washburn was 22 years old at the time and met Cesar Chavez. Well, do you want me to tell the story, Scott, or do you want to tell the story? So Scott walked into Gus's house, which was basically functioning as the union headquarters, and reported for work as usual in the morning, and a guy lying in his underwear asleep on the floor jumped up, and that's how he met Cesar Chavez for the first time. So from there, Scott is just one of the many people who've gone on to become tremendous organizers. So the fast served as an organizing tool, and the union used the fast to launch the recall campaign. People may remember that, which was a way to engage people. So people would come because Cesar was fasting, and then you want to be able to channel, as an organizer, you want to find a way to use all that energy, and you've got people who want to do something. So what do? They went out with petitions and they gathered signatures to recall the governor, because that was a way to very publicly protest the anti-farm worker legislation. The recall campaign did not ultimately the petitions got thrown out, but they got more than enough signatures, and it was a way to enlist lots of supporters. And then the breaking of the fast was a very well orchestrated and elaborate event that was also staged, I believe, on the anniversary of the date of Bobby Kennedy's assassination. So that gave it sort of an added emotional resonance. So that's, in brief, the story of the fast. And
Great. So as Miriam alluded, we have a special guest here. He's really not a guest to Arizona. He inhabits Arizona. He leads Arizona. He's a community organizer and a major union figure, and that is Scott Washburn, who is here for every day of the fast. And I invited him to give us some remarks and to remember that moment. So Scott, please.
Actually, when we applaud, we go like this. I first want to thank Matt for doing this, and the department at ASU for bringing us all together. And what a great thing. So this place for me is, when I come into it, I remember the two most important things that ever happened to me in my life happened here really at the same time. I started learning how to become an organizer, which I've done every day since then, and that's become my life. And I fell in love with my wife, Nancy, right here in this building, and those two things has forever shaped my life, and it was transformational for me. I think it was transformational for almost everybody, and because so many lives were transformed, it had a transforming effect on the state. And it was it looked a little bit different, but how it worked in practicality was, as Matt said, that Cesar was back in that room every day, and he had a little cot, and he would receive visitors at first, and every night, I think at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, we had it set up this way across. We were all looking this way, and he'd come out and sit in a little rocking chair. And the idea was that we would have a mass every night, a farm worker mass, and the priest had the eagle on, and we'd have a nice mass. And then after the mass, there'd be like a community meeting. And we had some of the most talented organizers in the world. We had Jim Drake, who was one of the best organizers ever. We had Chris Hartmeyer in charge of the migrant ministry here. We had Leroy Chatfield. And they would lead this meeting. And it started to, and then after we had the meeting, strangely enough, I never understood this. That was a kitchen back there in the back. And we'd eat menudo every night after the meeting was over with. It was kind of strange to me, but seemed to make sense to everybody else. And then we'd have music, and so every day, actually the first mass was in Gustavo's house out in Tolleson, and there was 5 people at that mass. And by the end, and every night it would start to grow and grow and grow here every day. And people would bring offerings. They bring things, you know, they bring a flag, or they bring flowers, or they bring pictures, or they bring a letter from school kids, or they bring some kind of, you know, offering. And it started to grow and grow and grow, and towards the end, it was just filled with things and filled with love. And so, you know, and incidentally, this is also the birthplace of Si Se Puede. This is where it happened, you know. This is where it all took place here. And so we were able to watch a mass of 5 people on the first night grow to a mass of 4,000 people at the Del Webb Townhouse at the end of the fast. And talk about Si Se Puede. That's forever, like the experience of that's forever changed how I thought about things, you know. So, you know, the interesting thing is, you know, and Miriam talks about the recall, and we go out every day and we'd hustle signatures. And you know what? It wasn't an easy sell in Arizona at that time to get Jack Williams, get people to sign a recall for Jack Williams. But what happened is because to sign a recall petition, you had to be a registered voter. And so a lot of people weren't registered. And so we had to go out and register people to vote, and so they could sign the petition. And in the November of 1972, with all the new voter registrations that we had done, just because of the recall, even though George McGovern lost pretty badly here in Arizona, all kind of new people were elected. I think there was 3 Native Americans got elected. There was Alfredo was elected, Gutierrez was elected. And that was the beginning of it was a watershed moment for politics in Arizona, I think. Largely, maybe an unintended consequence. You know, George McGovern was here. George McGovern came and visited Cesar back in this room. He was running for president. One night, Coretta Scott King came. People came from all across the country and to participate in this thing. And it was largely you know, Cesar talked about the fast of love. It really brought people together in a way that only a fast can do. So thanks, Matt. And I see a lot of familiar faces out there remembering all this, and just great to see everybody. So thank you very much.
So as I said, we have friends far and near, and I want to start with the friends near. Someone who was instrumental in putting this program together was B. Chavez, who worked with me. She's part of our team. And the person that she went to and got a lot of useful information about who made the sacrifices, who was here making the movement move, as I like to say, in Arizona, was a whole set of people that are in your program. But Jose Cortez was someone that reached out to us, and we were in constant communication. So I want to appreciate Jose. Jose, would you join me? Come and step up here. As I said, the Arizona contingent of the movement is underplayed at this point, but these are the people that helped us or helped the movement become what it is in Arizona. So Jose Cortez shared with us a number of people who we should honor today, and I'm grateful to you. Would you like to say anything?
Yes.
Yes.
I would.
Yeah.
Good morning to each and every one of you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here also in the presence of Cesar, who is with us in spirit. Every time I walk into this building, I can feel his presence. And I want to thank Matt for allowing me the opportunity to say a few words. First of all and foremost, I'd like to make it clear that there were thousands of farm workers who made a tremendous sacrifice to follow Cesar. One of them was my good friend Benny, who had his funeral services here at Santa Rita, which was one of his wishes. But like Benny, there were many of us who made sacrifices, who lost our families, who stood on the picket line, We gave everything we had to follow Cesar. And those of us that are here today represent not ourselves, but all of those campesinos that sacrificed, all of them that are not here today, because this is what Cesar would have wanted. He never wanted the light to shine on him. He always wanted to look out for his followers, for those people who were there to give him support, and for those people who believed in him. We believed in him, and those of us that are left are here to say thank you and to continue this process of moving forward the struggle of Si Se Puede. We've got one other struggle coming up, and that is to make Cesar Chavez Day a legal holiday here in Arizona. And that's what we're going to be working on sooner or later. Thank you very much.
So as Jose shared with us, there's thousands of people, right? And the number of names that we have probably will not cover everybody, but I wanted to read those names of the people. So Jose Cortez, Celia Arambula, is she here? No? Yes? Jose Ojeda.
He had to go work. There's three that had to go to work.
Rita Aguilar.
Work.
Work, of course. Juan Alvarez. Juan. Lucia Abetia. And Josie Ojeda.
Work.
Work, yes. And then someone who has been instrumental also in helping to facilitate this event is Casper. Just goes by Casper. Casper. Oh, he's inside. Okay. Yep. Yeah?
Yes, I'm just messing.
Okay, we haven't met. So I'd like you all to come. Who is here, please come forward. We have a token of our appreciation for you being here. All those names that I just read, please come forward. B, you want to come up and help? So we made sure that you were remembered and commemorated here in these plaques here. Carlos, I'm sorry, Lasagos, would you please come forward? And it commemorates this moment and also your contribution. In honor of the faithful Cesar Chavez followers of Arizona. Arizona, besides being the birthplace of Cesar Chavez, was the home to many volunteers who contributed to the movement with their work and loyalty to La Causa. We honor their work and place in history. There you go. Thank you. I have a big something for you, Casper. Just a second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so. So Casper, you've done a great job preserving this place and hosting us today. And we want to give something back to the center. We'd like it to be here forever. And this is a very nice plaque that we designed to have it be on the wall here to commemorate the fast and commemorate the farm worker advocates that helped make the movement special. So here is a permanent plaque to go here in honor of Cesar Chavez and the farm workers for whom he endured the fast for love, May 11th, 1972 to June 4th, 1972, and the faithful advocates for farm worker justice in Arizona. Arizona, besides being the birthplace of Cesar Chavez, was the home to many volunteers who contributed to the movement with their work and loyalty to La Causa. We honor their work and place in history. Thank you, Casper.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned, we have also veterans of the movement and really people that led the movement here in the room today who we've invited in from outside of Arizona. I want to read their names. Gretchen Lowy. Gretchen. And Mario Bustamante. You've already met Miriam, and you've met Scott, who's not outside, but he's on the list here of people that help lead. Luis Heredia is not here today, but he was here yesterday. He would actually shuttle many of the organizers back and forth, as he told me, from Arizona to California, and commemorated and thought about those days with me, and has been an informant in terms of helping me understand the history of this place. And then Edmundo Hidalgo is someone who is not here with us, right, Casper?
That's correct.
Right, but he is someone that we have to appreciate and thank for allowing us to use this place. He is the representative for Chicanos por la Causa, and Chicanos por la Causa are the ones that really still maintain this place along with Casper. So thank you, right? Did you want to say something?
Yeah. I accept this on behalf of the board, and Chicanos por la Casa. I'm also a board member, currently on the board right now, and I want to say thank you for you folks for recognizing that, and also the committee who's been involved all these years since we've been since 2000. Not only cleaning this place up, but preserving the history, the legacy of this place, but the spirit, but also the events we had over the years. We've been doing and continue to do. For those who are not aware of it, this place has been chosen by the Department of the Interior to be a national designate. So in the future, near future, we're going to find out how that plays out for us. Thank you, folks.
So, probably the most special guest from out of town is a co-founder of the movement. He was a man who was with Cesar Chavez in the community service organization, made the leap to Delano, and formed the National Farm Workers Association that eventually became the United Farm Workers after the merger with the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee. And that is Gilbert Padilla, co-founder of the movement. Gil, would you please rise? Talk about unsung hero. There is a lot of history and a lot of circulation of the stories, but Gil is the one that often is not remembered as a co-founder, and that is a correction that I try to make every place I go and speak, because I've learned more from Gil than anybody in terms of the work that I've done. And I wrote a book called From the Jaws of Victory, and sat with Gilbert several times. I don't know how many times. And he's always welcoming, he's always supportive, and he's always full of stories. Miriam has also discovered that as well. And anybody that has to write about the movement and understand the movement passes through Fresno and passes through El Monte Street, right? That's where you live. Right across the street from William Soroyan's house, in fact. So talking about another legendary figure, right? But this is a legendary figure. And let me just share with you what I think special about Gilbert. Aside from all the things that he did, right? The founding of the National Farm Workers Association, the facilitation of the merging of AWOC and NFWA, particularly going to Filipino Hall, sleeping in a sleeping bag with the Filipino strikers, who were not quite sure yet whether the Mexican strikers and NFWA were going to come over and join them. Gilbert was there to facilitate that. And so he was there so much that people mistook him for Cesar Chavez, in fact, right? Because they'd all heard about this Cesar Chavez, but it was Gil that was the tip of the sword, the leading figure that came and helped that happen, right? So not just co-founder in name, but in action. He founded it. He put it together. He built it. And he was with that movement for 3 decades in the end, right? So I think it's really important to share that part of Gilbert. But the other part of it is as a historian. So there was ups and downs as in any organization. There was ups and downs in the United Farm Workers. And there were decisions made and things done that were not always things that you could look back on and say, wow, that's what I want to own. And the great thing about Gilbert is that he owns all of it. He said, when we were great, we were great. And when we did things wrong, I want those remembered too. And for it to be our legacy and to pass that on so that we learn from it, so that the issues that still plague us today, right? Poor treatment of farm workers in the field, the mistreatment of immigrants in our community, the problems with misrepresentation of Mexican people on screen in our schools. All those things can't get better unless we tell, to quote Gilbert, the history of our people, warts and all. That's what he told me, warts and all. So I think that was incredibly courageous. In many ways, he is a leader in that way in terms of storytelling and history. And so for that, I appreciate Gilbert, and I wanted to share with him a gift. This gift was inspired by his late wife and also a charismatic figure and someone who was in the movement, Esther Padilla. Esther, before she passed away, I say she read my book twice, and we talked about it extensively. I enjoyed that conversation more than any conversation I've had with veterans about the work I did. But she asked me for a photo, a specific photo of Gilbert, and it was this photo that appeared in my book. And unfortunately, I did not get it to her before she passed away, but I feel like I'm making good today on that promise to do that. And we produced a plaque with the photo in honor of Gilbert Padilla, co-founder of the Farm Worker Movement, Santa Rita Center, April 8th, 2014. Thank you, Gilbert.
It's hard to talk about history that, 40 years, 5 years, and then say something in 5 minutes. It's very difficult, especially people like me who got used to talking, and then you start talking and they don't know when to stop. Go on and on. I have memories of Arizona. I came here first in April of 1965, when I met Gus Gutierrez. And actually, I worked with Fred Ross for many years, and Fred Ross invited me to come to work in Guadalupe. And I came to Guadalupe to see if I would work there in a project for the Industrial Areas Foundation with Fred, with the Yaquis and the Mexicans living around Los 40. I wanted to come, and then I didn't come. But I've always admired Fred, and then he hired Lauro Garcia instead of me, and his wife worked in Guadalupe. And then I came later with my wife, worked for the transplantation organization. She had a meeting in Scottsdale, And I came with her, and we were driving around, and I see Guadalupe, which was an unknown. So I told her, drive in there, you know. And I see a city. I saw a little shopping center, and a lot different than was when I first came, where there was no streets and no nothing. Anyway, so I have memories of Arizona. I used to come to a Mirage where we had an office. Juan was there. I remember Juan. I remember you. I remember some of the people that I see here. I can't remember their names, but as excuse me, I developed a little cold some time ago, so I'm gonna be doing this. When I walk in here, the last time I walked here was in 1972, when we had a rally here, and we brought a lot of politicians and stuff, and Cesar ended the fest, and I got a little emotional. I usually don't get emotional. Remember, this is 1972. That's a long time. And I was talking to Juan, and I said, Juan, how old are you, Juan? He says 66 or 67. And memory goes like, that's been a long time. You know? But the thing that I like to stress a lot, that is not known, is the Filipinos. And the Filipinos were the one that started the strike in Delano. I had a little strike going, just a small strike and a rent strike, but Larry Itliong, who was the leader of the Filipinos, had been working with the FFL-CIO for years, since the 50s, late 50s. And they had made some strikes in Imperial Valley. They had made some strikes, but never got contracts. But I think I was talked about yesterday that's interesting to me, and I think that should be interesting to everybody, is that why we're not together, the Filipinos in a camp, the Chicanos in the camp, and the Caseros, and the Puerto Ricanos, not very many, but they had their own camp. We were all segregated. We didn't know each other. We didn't talk to each other until the strike. And when the strike started, there were about 5,000 people on the street, and Cesar calls me and says, "Vente, porque se está acabando el mundo." You know, it's muchos Filipinos ahora. So I came over. I was in another little ranch, and he says, "Va a ver qué está pasando en los Filipino halls." So I went to the Filipino hall, and this is the time that opened my mind. I went up in the front because I wanted to learn what was happening. And there was three Filipinos with microphones talking, and I, after the meeting, you know, what's going on? I asked Larry, what's this, Larry? He says, well, the interpreters. Interpreters? What do you mean interpreters? Yeah, and then he explained to me, this is we only have a common language, it's Tagalog. The other one's Ilocano, the other one's Organo, the other one's the dialects? No, languages. Even they were segregated by their languages. And that strike brought us all together. For the first time, we learned how to eat rice, fish heads, stuff like that, and tabbouleh and all that. And we merged because Cesar was very scared because we didn't have any money and we weren't ready. And we didn't strike about 8 days, something like that, later. And then I talked to Larry, and then I go back and I told Cesar, well, what are we going to do? So, well, for paper, well, for something, well, for something. Yeah, Larry, you think we can have lunch in the Filipino hall, because they had the money, and then they offered the Filipino, and then we started eating there. And we ate there, we had our meetings there, and for the first time, the three groups got together. That was one of my highlights in seeing that, we didn't know. And I learned in my life that if you don't know people, until you know people, they're just like you. They're no different. The language is, but we are all alike. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I worked and moved all over California. Went to Texas. I went to Philadelphia. I went to Wisconsin. I went to Washington D.C. I went to the South. I never got tired. And people have asked me, even today, you never get tired? No, I never got tired. I always enjoyed it. And so you sacrifice. No, I never sacrificed anything. My children sacrificed. My first wife sacrificed, but not me. Because I was doing something I wanted to do, I wanted to change. And when I met Cesar back in 1956, we talked alike. Coming out of the service saying, what's happening to us? And we don't have anybody in the school board, we don't have anybody, we don't even have cops. And he came trying to get me involved in the CSO, and I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested until he told me, we're going to work on the farm worker issue. And when he said that, that's when my antennas went up. And he was supposed to be there about half an hour. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning. We were still talking about what really happened. How are we going to change it? And that's where I got involved, 1956. And I don't do much anymore, except come places like this. And I want to thank Matt for the nice introduction. I want to thank my good friend, Scott Washburn, that I appreciate very much. And I use him a lot because Scott, when we got the law to have elections, he was the one that won more elections than anybody else. A little story because he also learned how to fire people with glare, with fire people with humor and everything. We were going on. Him and I worked a couple of days up and down California. And so we go fire Juan. So we took him out of the office. We took him around. We drove him around. Took him to the park and we talked, and we took him out to have lunch, and we ate lunch, and then we fired him, and then he paid for the lunch. Thank you.
I wanted to do this for a long time. I wanted to do this for a long time. So it's been a privilege to honor you and to honor all of the veterans of the movement. I think this is the legacy of the movement in many ways. The community that continues, the very multicultural, multi-ethnic, multilingual community. And, I think there's so much more history to be written. And I encourage you to write it. There's students here in the audience, and I really want that to happen. That would be my legacy as an educator, and I think the legacy of Miriam's work as well. Because even though we've written now, between Miriam and my book, thousands of pages, there's thousands of more pages to be written. And the Filipino story is a very important one that I think is waiting for a book. But I think I'll leave it there. I appreciate your turning out for this very special event. There's pan dulce in the back, and there's a good conversation to be had. So thank you. And, excuse me? Oh, yes, and B has reminded me that we have photo releases because this was being photographed. So if you would be so kind to release your image to us, that would be beneficial to us. I want to also, before we break, appreciate B. Kravitz again for all that she did. Really amazing. I want to appreciate Susan Valeri, who is the greeter as you come in and the greeter as you go out. Fantastic events planner. And then Humberto Garza, who has always been the companion that's brought Gilbert to us, and also a great scholar in his own right who's written about the CSO. Humberto, thank you for coming. So with that, thank you.
Is there an event tonight at the Chavez bookstore?
Yes. Then there are two events. Let me share with you before you break. So we're going to talk about the movie that just came out, Cesar Chavez, an American Hero. There'll be many, many opinions, and we are going to solicit opinions from the audience as well. So group discussion, but it'll be led by a very venerable historian and filmmaker in his own right, Paul Espinosa, who is a professor of transborder studies at ASU. I'll participate. Miriam and Gilbert will share a few minutes of our opinions and then open it up for a discussion. That is at 4:30 in the Memorial Union Pima Auditorium at ASU. And then at 7 o'clock tonight at Changing Hands in Tempe, Miriam will talk about her book and sign books. So 2 more events if you would like to participate, and we welcome you to all of these. Thank you.